Oh, hang on. I can't, just let me stop sharing. Tell me when you're up, huh?
Yes, we are up. So,
oh, I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Hello and good afternoon to everybody. I'm Kathy Berman, and my world, my game is innovation, impact, and incubation currently. And what that does is I stretch across a range from corporates to community, to public sector, where we consult and we go into creating new ventures, a lot of new ventures. My passion is social enterprise, which is new ventures which are for the good of the broader society. And I have a range of little companies that have been incubated under my broader space consulting company. And this particular one, Innovate Express, is one that looks at providing resources to people who are wanting to pretty much be at startup phase. They've got an idea and they want to take it forward, and they hope that it'll be robust enough. So let's go on the journey together. You're going to realize that I play with the word 8 for this presentation. So they're going to be 8, if I can find the right fingers, 8 key concepts that we're going to talk to. And then I'll be showing you a range of worksheets. Innovate Express, you just put a couple of W's in front of it and you can find the worksheets or get in touch with me later. So let me begin. Here are our 8s blowing us away. And as you can see, basically it's how we're going to succeed. And there are 8 key messages. I'm sitting with this awful thing where I've got to press a got it to show that I'm on the meeting, and I'm going to lose. There we go. I apologize. Am I still sharing?
Yes, so good. You are still sharing. We can see that.
Okay, and you're only seeing my slides. You're not seeing both sides.
We see the whole things.
Okay,
So.
okay, sorry, because the message comes through saying you've got to press got it, but when you're already on screen, then you can't press got it. So apologies, everybody, for the backroom noise. Right, so this is me. Right, we know that's me. Okay, so point number 0, basically, because I would have had to have run out of a few others. Innovate. So those of you who have or haven't worked in the innovation field, this is going to be a racing tour through the processes of innovation, which is a relatively new discipline. And basically, as you can see, I have lots of fun looking at cool images to illustrate my presentation. So hopefully you all think they're as cool as I do. But basically, I rely a lot in my workshops on design-centered innovation, which those of you who know it and those who don't, you recognize a need or a challenge or an opportunity. Generally, it comes out of a social need environment. So people need electricity, they need running water, whatever. Or you recognize that people in line at school need, or people in line at a hospital need food, okay, or whatever. Or you just want to create booties for dogs to go in the snow. So you recognize a need. And this entire process during the innovation process moves from understanding your operating environment and then thinking divergently and convergently and eventually refining your ideas. So what we're going to do today is go on this rapid tour through defining and confining or redefining, pivoting, etc., your idea until you get to something that you can bring to market. So point number 1 is ideate. So what are you creating, making, or selling? Right. Is it a product or is it a service? Right. Does it fulfill a need other than your own? And for me, that's a biggie for me. I love fulfilling my own need. I go off on a tangent. Every few minutes, I create a new project, a new business or whatever. But it needs a couple more criteria than that. Is it unique? Well, does it have to be unique? A lot of products are copycat products, so it need not be unique. But if it's unique, in terms of unique, is it something unique enough for people to want to pay good money for? Okay. So part of the interrogation of the process is to say, what business are you in? Okay, is it a product or is it a service? So suddenly we were all in lockdown. Suddenly we all had a whole new world. It was Zoom. Okay. But there were a whole lot of things that changed. But at that point, we all had different needs. For me, I recognized that there'd be a need for masks. So I started with some of my community sewing ladies. We had 48 people making masks. Okay, so those were products. I wasn't very good on the financing side of it because initially I financed them high as buy one, give one away for free. And eventually, as masks became mandatory in my country, which is South Africa, the pricing went way down and I still have probably about 200 masks sitting in my house. But that was a product. Service, I early on identified the perfect service, which was a Zoom an ability to help people frame their Zoom calls. Because if one had to see one more image of people's nostrils or see images of people whose partners were walking behind them in the nude or something. And so there've been all those kind of snafus, but that certainly is not a service and it's not something someone would pay for. So that was the product service dichotomy. On the B2B or B2C, is your service being shared with a business? Is it going to be sold onto a business who will then, a retailer will then on-sell it, or a platform online will on-sell it? So are you going to Etsy or to Amazon with your published work? We were learning about writing books yesterday. Or are you going to be selling directly to your market? Are you going to be able to just set up your own storefront? And are you then going to be able to sell from Shopify? I'm talking now, obviously, digital. Shopify, WooCommerce, what is your mechanism if you're going to, for example, go forward with the idea of dog shoes for the snow? Okay, so would you rather go to Etsy? Do you think Amazon would look after how will you fulfill that promise, right? So is it going to be a direct sale or is it going to be intermediated or mediated, right? Are you looking for bricks or clicks, as in, are you going into a store down the road, which was a little difficult during lockdown, or much easier was the click option if you knew how to create a click store, right? And I did leave out the point earlier where is it a mass market item or is it a very niche product? And obviously there's a range and it's important to define whether you want 60 million people in a country to buy it or whether you just want 100,000. Formulate. The image behind this is quite an interesting one because as you can see, these are prosthetics. And what was interesting about it is this was an exhibition at the Cooper Hewitt which was looking at appropriate design to meet needs, which is obviously something I'm passionate about. And as you can see with that image, these are very beautiful, almost tattoo-like prosthetics. And what was interesting at that time was that prosthetics weren't looked at as sexy items, but utilitarian items. And today, if you think post the Paralympics recently, the mere blade shape is incredibly, in inverted commas, sexy because that gives people speed. So again, the notion of prosthetics, what am I going to be selling? Is it going to meet the need of someone who wants something really gorgeous to look at? Is it going to just meet the need of someone who hasn't got prosthetics? And do they actually need prosthetics? Can they get by with a wheelchair? Can they get by with crutches? So at all points, there's always many options, even though you might have set your heart on making prosthetic limbs. So in short, what problem are you solving? Okay. And really important in the design process is it a prototype? You need to actually get to a prototype, either a physical prototype or something that you can explain in a model so people are clear on what it is you're going to be creating. And then you should be ready, once you've tested it in the market, to pivot and repeat. So the whole thing around the new entrepreneurial environment is be ready to fail. And if you've failed 100 times, then you might even succeed. And we've got quite a nice worksheet that we work with here where we ask key questions and people fill them in, as in, what business are you in? why are you in the business? What are its unique features, which I've gone into, and who's it aimed at? How do they know about you? How are you funding it, etc.? So we'll carry on going through that. But what's nice about this is it's one pager and you get to answer the hard questions very early in the journey. Do you have the skill set? So you're interrogating yourself again. Do you have the skill set? Are you going to have to insource them? Is there anyone around you who can fulfill that? If you're not good at admin, if you're not good at numbers, but you're fantastic at creating or baking cupcakes, okay, so great, you have the skill set. Now you can look at your typical SWOT analysis, your own strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. What I like to do is work with the entrepreneur themselves to look at a self-assessment so that they have a much more robust business environment once they know about their self-assessments versus their business assessments, which you can also do the SWOT test for. A very nice question is, what are your expectations? And that's your usual projection. So where will you be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, etc. And another one, which is the one that we offer for free, is your business selection workshop, where you rate where you are on your business idea, your knowledge of it, your experience of it, your skills, the ease of entry into that marketplace, and who your support opportunities are, the green form, who there is around you that you can rely on when you really need to rely on them. I don't know who Andrea relies on. I don't know how one woman can do what she does, but moving on. I know who I'll rely on when I need it. So here we come to the corroborate or the educate. The question here is, it really is important to ask to perpetually question yourself, perpetually corroborate your assumptions, perpetually educate yourself. If you're Elon Musk, you're not going to keep educating yourself, or you probably will, but you probably won't listen when you go and corroborate with someone. Or let me not go any further, but maybe if you're Mark Zuckerberg. So who is your customer, and can you get in front of them? So really lovely when one talks about getting to a prototype point is, if you've now come up with the idea of the dog booties, where are you going to find people who want dog booties for the snow? Well, in my country, it's absolutely useless product because we don't have snow. So is there a market for my product anywhere else? And how am I going to reach that market? Okay. And how big is that market? And then how do you differentiate the snow boots for a dog my size, which is only 1.5 kilos, and a 60 kilogram dog? Okay, who is my customer? Where do I find them? Do I go to my local pet store? Do I go to the local park? How do I reach my customer? And once I get in front of that potential customer, then the question is, how do I ask open questions? Questions where I'm listening and not telling. Questions which I'm sure we've covered all over in this course, but in this process, this conference, questions where you are listening actively to what people really want. I mean, the problem often is that people don't know what they want until they see it. So that's a bit of a problem. Calculate. So as you can see, I've got a gorgeous artwork of a little piggy with lots of gold bars. So you get it. Show me the money. Excuse me, I have to cough. Show me the money. So for my kind of venture, I'm going to have to cough once more, and I don't know how to silence myself from this point.
No problem. Just take it easy. You can also take a water if you need some.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Until then, the audience can think about questions. Sharman and Anjali are here, so please write your questions into the comments.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so now we're on to the money. Okay, so funding for my kind of work, where I work in social enterprise, that's a toughie because you've got to get out there and raise funds. But when you're starting your own business, it's a question of, are you going for debt funding, equity funding, self-funding? Are you going to sell, am I going to sell my little dog, or am I going to make him do dog tricks? Forgive me again. And then once you've worked out your funding, how you're actually going to get up and running, then it's your price point. And you've got to be very, very rigorous with yourself about the price point thing, because you either are in two phases. Either you overprice or you underprice and don't price in your own efforts and the raw materials enough, etc., etc. So you need somebody to help you with that. And your profit point, you've got to make sure that you feed yourself. And ultimately, the question is, between your income and your expenditure, are you creating or destroying value? Now, the classical business school model, for those of us who've endured those models, was always, how much money are you making? What is your EBITDA? What is your profit? Okay. But once we're moving into the world of social enterprise, creating or destroying value is a completely different concept, because are you creating value for other people in another community or for yourself? And maybe it's not financial value. Maybe you're creating happiness and it's a happiness index. Maybe you're educating, but you're not making money out of it. So for me, that's a key element in how you decide how you're going to fund your happiness index or someone else's, if that's what you're working on. But getting down and dirty, obviously you have your startup costs, you sit down and you work through those. And generally we all hope that we're going to sell so much that, forgive me again, I'm so sorry, that we're going to sell so much that actually, we're going to break even in minutes. Well, as we all know, 5 out of 6 startups go bankrupt very soon or go out of operation. And here we have the notion of operations operate. Okay, and it's all about your production, your processes, your inputs, your resources, your materials, your systems, and your skills. So where are you going to source your raw materials? Where can you get them at the right price point? And how are you going to transform them? What skills will you need? What machinery will you need? Do you need premises? What people and systems do you need? And I've got a dog who now wants to leave the room. And this is one of my favorite little worksheets that we work with. And the next one is you can catalog it in columns. But if you look at what is essentially 1 o'clock in this little clock, if you're starting with your strategic vision, you're then going through to what is the production process we're going to be going through, and what resources do we need? Who do we need with us? And with each of these, you write it down along the clock. And then, have you got ways to manage your people? Have you got ways to draw up contracts, etc.? Financial management, business systems, sales, marketing, distribution. I mean, you can read that all. And consumer touch points. How are you going to get it to the consumer, and how they're going to know about it? And ultimately, what is your product? So now we're getting to the how do we get to the people? So how do we communicate? This, by the way, is a very interesting. Forgive me one more time. This is a very interesting space down in Cape Town. I live in between Johannesburg and Cape Town in South Africa. And this was shot at a place called Gugusetebe, which is a community center, which is just such a very beautiful and very uplifting space where there's this amazing range of entrepreneurialism. Marketing mix, how to reach your customers. Obviously, we know about packaging and distribution and display and physical, but the digital one is changing all the time. So now we've gotten used to Zoom, but we've all got to now be instant experts in Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, or do we? And if we can't be experts in that, then what? Okay, so how else do you reach your customers? One-to-one or via a channel? Another story behind the image. Here we see, and this one is the story that grew out of the Zoom lectures. And I'm going to take one more sip. So with this picture here, we see a bunch of kids in a computer class with smiles on their faces. 4 years ago, this particular space was an informal squatter camp settlement, and a woman with incredible vision arrived and used to feed these kids once a week on a Sunday. Today, it's a full-on school for kids up to the age of 12, And we had a dream. I've got a mentor who lives with me, a mentee who lives with me. And we had a dream about starting out teaching computers. And we do a lot of things in community, but computers. And what was amazing is these are 5 donated laptops. Wi-Fi is not a good thing in the townships there, but we managed to get Wi-Fi. And what for me was so exciting, and I've done a lot of coding classes with young kids. What was amazing was we had to work out how we were going to run the computer classes offline. And all we had to do was create our own computer classes. And within seconds, literally within seconds, from not being able to hold a mouse to holding a mouse, within 5 minutes, we had these kids starting to work on their computers. So right now we're into the acceleration phase because we're going to expand beyond our one little school. And this is where it gets exciting. And so at this point, we then get into the hard questions again of what our core business. What is our core business focus? Once more, what are our processes, our inputs, our market, our additional offerings? How are we going to fund it? What are our income streams? And at this point, I want to talk about what are your inhibitors to success? And yesterday there was that session on confidence. A lot of that is an inhibitor. And what are your successes? What are you marking as your successes? What is your profit and what is your impact in your market? So how will you know that you've made it? And go back to your expectation sheet and say, how will I feel? How will I know? And when you know that you are on the brink of breaking through, so although this talk was about getting to market, it's how do I get to my market that I've chosen, which can maybe just be 5 people in my neighborhood with lemonade, okay? And at that point, you should be ready. And this is the little school from the outside where we did a mural with Mandela on it. And at that point, you should be ready to celebrate because you have achieved something awesome because you've brought it to some form of market. And this is outside the Zuid-Mocha Museum down in Cape Town. And you can see they're really celebrating. And just to quickly sum up, that's my website and that's my email. So we moved from the 0 on the innovate. Okay. The first point was ideate, interrogate, formulate, corroborate or educate, calculate, operate, communicate, accelerate, and celebrate. And with that, I'm ready to open it up to the floor and apologize for my coughing.
Let's open to the floor. So we have Ambreen, Anjali, and Jay. So Sharm, I believe. So I will stop the live stream. Thank you for watching. Next time, see you in the Zoom room. Make sure that you are here and you get more information and insight from the experts. But now we start our secret code.